We will be making this gorgeous peony and rose bouquet today. Before getting started on putting the flowers together, we need to prep the stems. So for this bouquet, we know that we don't want any leaves below because we are going to be doing a handheld bouquet. And then we also want to take off any petals that are damaged, such as this one. I'm going to clip the other leaves off. Now, it's okay to leave the ones at the top because if they're visible, then it might make sense to go ahead and just leave them in place. For instance, like this one, it's fairly up high and the leaves are rather pretty, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as is. Now to prep roses, roses are normally shipped with guard petals where the farmers just leave the petals on, and that helps to protect the flowers while they're in transit. And as you can see, it's not very pretty, so go ahead and remove those guard petals by gently plucking them off. And you can continue peeling off any other inner petals as needed if it's too damaged. For this arrangement, we know that we don't want any of the stems on the rose itself, so I will go ahead and clip those off. And then next, you want to remove any thorns. I like pruning shears to cut off thorns and to cut the stems because they are very hefty, so you can cut through branches with these in addition to flower stems. But you can also use floral scissors as well. But if you're interested in getting these pruning shears, then you can look at the description below. Let's talk about the other supplies that we will be needing for today's bouquet. I already mentioned the pruning shears. I have scissors to cut the ribbon that will be going on the handle of the bouquet. And I'm using this nice and thin 1/4 inch ribbon just because I am going to tie a nice delicate bow on the handle. And then of course we have floral tape and a glue gun to help secure the ribbon. And I'll show you how to do that later. I'm going to just start off with a bloom that is not as open. Now I'll say that I purchased this about 3 hours ago from Trader Joe's, and most of these flowers were closed, so you could not see the yellow stamens when I purchased them. They were about the size of a tennis ball. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing the flowers because they will open up quickly. And if you're not looking for something as open as these peonies, then try to get the ones that are really tight because they don't take very long to open at all. And especially in warmer weather, they will open a lot more quickly. I also want to mention that Trader Joe's will allow you to special order any flowers that are in season. So if, most of the time when you're at Trader Joe's, you won't see peonies. These just happen to be available when I went there today. So if you don't see them and you need them for a special occasion, I would definitely inquire with Trader Joe's and see if they can order some for you. All right, so let's get started. Start off with just 2 of these. And then, as I mentioned, we'll also be using these fuchsia roses. So just inserting those in here. And I like to just start off with 3 first and then see how it goes. As you'll notice, some of the flowers tend to have a forward-facing side. See how it's facing to one side slightly? So when you put them together, you want to just go with their natural nature. And then that way your bouquet will come together a lot more easily. So with 3 of these already started, I am going to go ahead and secure them just to have them a little bit more manageable as I'm assembling the stems together. So with floral tape, hold it with 1 finger on the stem and then pull slightly to release the adhesive. You're stretching the tape so it will release the adhesive inside. Okay, and then it rips fairly easily, so if you just pull with enough pressure, you can just rip it off. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add this beautiful big peony here. Isn't that just beautiful? Look how big that is. You'll see there's a natural gap in here, and I don't want to smush all of the peonies together. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill that in with a rose. The nice thing about these peonies is that they take up a lot of space. So as you can see, the bouquet is coming together quite nicely already, and we don't have very much further to go as far as adding more flowers to this bouquet. And as you'll notice, naturally a dome shape is beginning to form. So you just want to work with what you have and just kind of fill in the spaces. So for instance, there's a space over here, but I'm going to be putting another peony over there. So for now, I'm just going to try to fill in on this side. And see how I place the rose so that it continues to just build out that dome shape. So in this gap here, like I mentioned, I will be putting another peony over here, and it looks like maybe a medium size would work. So let me see if I can find one. I think this will be good. And as you place the next flower stem, keep in mind any shape that you've already formed on the opposite side so you can keep it fairly even. So I wouldn't want it to be like this because then it wouldn't match up with the rose on the other side. So I'm going to pull it down slightly. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put some more tape just to make sure that everything stays put just the way I like it. And then after that, take a look from the top and assess where you need more variety. So I have a rose over here, a rose over here, and maybe for interest, I might want to put something over here. And continuing to take care of the shape so that I'm not having the flowers a little too high. Now there is going to be a point where you don't want to squish the flowers because see how if you squished it, it just makes the rose too tight into the bouquet. And especially because there's a large gap because of the peony being just so wide as far as it bloomed go, you will need to allow for the rose stem to somewhat angle out from this middle axis where the floral tape is, because that will allow it to have more space. And even though I've only added a couple of roses, I will go ahead and secure this because it is at that angle shape, it is making it a little bit difficult to handle. So I am going to use the tape to assist with keeping everything in place. And I've only wound the tape once, and this is a good point in time to readjust anything that may need to be readjusted, because the tape will really keep everything secured in place. So you want to readjust before you make it all too tight. And I'm just taking a look from above to see if it's the rounded shape that I was hoping for. It looks fairly round over here. It's over here that looks like it could use a little bit more. And because of that, I am going to pull this stem up just so it's not, the rest of the bouquet is not going too low, since I want to build out on this side. And I will do that with some more peonies. All right, so if you take a look at that, it looks like it's rounded towards the bottom here, and this side needs to be rounded out. And again, I just wanted to remind you, see how the peony is facing off to one side? Well, I want to use that to my advantage and go ahead and allow it to face outward that way. As I'm looking at it, I see these two roses getting lost in there, so I will try to see if I can nudge them up a little bit. That's looking much better. Okay, and again, I will secure these flowers with the floral tape. Let's add some more roses to balance things out. Okay, so we have roses on this side and towards the center, and then we don't have anything over on this side. So I'll go ahead and add some more. And it doesn't have to be perfectly like a dome. Sometimes it looks nicer just to have it peeking out a little bit, as you'll see here. If you vary the height, that even adds a little bit more interest. So this rose is a little bit higher and then this one's lower. All right, so this looks like a very nice size bouquet. So that should be the last of it for the flowers, and then we will add some eucalyptus to finish it off. Before we add the eucalyptus, we want to make sure that all the flowers are in the position that we would like for them to be. So just go ahead and take a look throughout the bouquet and see if you like it. And when you're looking at it from the top to see how it looks like from the top, but you're also looking at it from the side to see that the flowers, the coloring is fairly level. I'm noticing that here looks like it's much higher than some of these other flowers, so I will be adding another peony here. Okay, and by adding that, it created more of a gap here. So I'm going ahead, go ahead and add another rose. And now we can add the eucalyptus. If you have eucalyptus leaves that are rather long stemmed, you can definitely break these apart, or I should say cut some of the stems down so that you can make full use of the leaves. And I'm placing this here just to see how it looks. And when you're doing that, make sure not to have the leaves go too high because you don't want to cover up those beautiful blooms. And actually, since I know I have to cut the eucalyptus stem down, I want to at least know how low the stem needs to go. So let me go ahead and just adjust or determine where the bottom of the bouquet will be. So the bride will be holding the bouquet here and maybe with two hands. And then I like to allow for a couple of inches below that. So that would be about here. So I'm going and cut all that off. Cut it so that it is level. Okay, so now we can get back to the eucalyptus leaves. So I've selected this stem here to go against the bouquet. And I have determined that it should go down to about here, but I don't want to waste this stem because I could be using it to lengthen this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and decide to cut it right there where it is branching off. When we fill up the vase with water, we can make sure that the water level goes up higher so that it does allow for this stem to receive water. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to have the stem cut so short that it will be behind where the ribbon is being held, because we ideally don't want the ribbon to be getting wet. I like to try to make use of these two stems here on these sides. So I'm going to try to see if I can put them up here and still keep a somewhat long branch so that it can continue to be in the water, and it can. So I will snip it at this branching point here and then use this. So this leaf right here obviously is very damaged and we're not going to use that. So I will go ahead and clip that off. And the next thing you want to do is you want to look to see where the majority of the leaves are, because that will be the part where you're trying to cover here. And as I mentioned, so see the stem is kind of matching up with this one, so it definitely will hit the water. And sometimes you just have to sacrifice the tips that are a little bit too high just so you can make use of the fuller leaves down here. And when I cut the tips off, I like to cut it right where the leaf is extending beyond, because then it is not as noticeable. So see right here, I'll be snipping it. And then keep these because these can also be used in the centerpiece arrangement, so don't toss those. All right, so let's continue adding more eucalyptus. As you'll see, there's eucalyptus leaves below here, but which we won't need because we're going to be putting the ribbon here and we want it to be just clean stems down here. So go ahead and clip anything off that is below where the ribbon will be. And sometimes so you have some stems that are sticking out and you don't necessarily like that, just go ahead and use the other leaves to help tuck that stem back and keep it more compact to the bouquet itself. So I've added quite a few eucalyptus stems at this point, and it's getting a little bit unwieldy to hold into place. So I am going to go ahead at this point and add the floral tape. And try to hold the stems tightly together as you're putting on the tape here, because you want a nice tight place for the ribbon to be able to hold on to or wrap around. It'll just be a neater look. So I probably went around that about 3 times with the tape until I felt like it was secure. All right, so now I'll just keep adding on more eucalyptus leaves. And at this point, take a look to see if you like where the leaves are at. And sometimes you might need to push things over just to get it exactly how you like it. And I'm noticing a very damaged leaf here, so I will pluck that off. And maybe this one as well. Okay, so now we are ready to put on the ribbon. Before we put on the ribbon, we want to decide which is the best looking side of the bouquet. And just taking a look at it, I would say that this is the best looking side, but I'm noticing that this stem is sticking out a bit more than I wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and clip the tip of that. There we go, much nicer. Okay, so because this is considered as the front side, I will then be starting the ribbon on the back side of the bouquet. And I am going to start where I would want the bottom of the ribbon to be, the bottom row that is. So just hold the ribbon with your finger and then wrap. And try to make sure that as you're wrapping, you cover up the end so that it just looks nice and clean and the end of that ribbon is not sticking out. And I'm noticing that I want to keep the distance between the ribbon as even as possible. It's just a much prettier look. So I'm going to unwind this and redo it so that it has a much more even distance between each row. Just keep working with the ribbon until you've covered all of the floral tape. Okay, so now that the front side, which is this side, is covered completely and looks pretty, I am going to go ahead and glue this ribbon down. I'm just going to put a little dab, just the teeniest bit of glue, and then hold the ribbon and press your finger on top of where that glue dot was and let it dry. Okay. And then I'll just snip it as close to that glue dot as possible. Just going to snip off this end just to make it nice and pretty. And I'm looking to have a nice ribbon hanging down, and this is actually the perfect length. So I'm going to keep it nice and long. It's probably about 3 feet of ribbon. I like it when the ribbon ends don't meet up exactly, so I'm going to allow one to be about a couple inches longer than the other side. Okay, and then I'm just going to snip off this end as well at an angle just to make it prettier. And there you have it, your finished peony and fuchsia rose bouquet.